All right, guys, welcome back. Evan Aldo here. If you enjoy the content, smash the like button and check out the free Crypto DCA course and the Discord down below. Let's get right into our today's TA update. First thing I wanted to look at a little bit here was the monthly. We got the green dot in the monthly right after you confirmed a trigger wave to the downside in the monthly, which, obviously the trigger wave to the downside is a very bearish sign. Now you're getting the green dot, which, any green dot in the monthly, especially on an asset that just goes up a lot, it's gone up a lot over time, is a really bullish sign. However, I wouldn't, given the, what's going on here? Given the grand scheme of things, basically every time other than your kind of pandemic, I believe the green dot brought you up, or kind of that time. It did bring you up a little bit, but you were kind of peaking out right there. I think that even if we do confirm this, given the way the 4-year cycle kind of is, I do think, and based on what happened last time, I do think this either potentially can go away, this green dot, not confirm, or when it does confirm, you could get a red dot right after it, and then we could come down a bit further into the end of the year, early next year. That's what I'm looking at on the macro right here. And to look at the weekly too. The weekly, and this kind of strengthens the argument that I just mentioned of coming down farther. Weekly, some type of weird head and shoulders kind of forming. Also, VWAP coming down, gap to RSI is coming down, looking like we want to come down farther. That's what I'm kind of getting at here. And I think that this trigger wave is going to turn into more of something like this, and then you'll come up into the having and have a good recovery into next year. So that's ultimately what we're looking at right there. 3-day, like yesterday, trigger wave to the downside, still bearish in that aspect. Now let's move on to some of the lower time frames, and I'll tell you kind of what my trading plan is, what I'm kind of looking at here. So if you guys were in the Discord, we did have a nice scalp long win yesterday, and we are in some swing shorts that are doing really, really well. Or I should say I am in the swing shorts. Not financial advice. It never is. I'm not right 100% of the time. Nobody is. But if you guys are interested, link down below. So, yeah. And ultimately, you look at the daily, red X right there. Typically after the green dot, green dot, red X, that was a big drop down, obviously, in August. Same thing kind of back here. You came down a lot. So in that aspect, still you're going to be kind of bearish. Would kind of strengthen swing shorts right here. And if we do look at some of these lower time frames here, you have VWAPs coming up on your 12-hour, on your 16-hour. That's the more bullish case, but the general trajectory of these EMAs turning gray right here, and then you look at, money flow coming out on your 6-hour, EMAs turning gray. Same thing with the 5-hour, even more bearish. Money flow looks like it wants to come deeper into the red to bring us to play around with potentially, 20s to low 26s, and then potentially lose that area and come down to the 25, right there. And then once you lose that, you have a technical target at 24 about, and then you got the spiral in at 23. 23 is going to be a pretty big area. When can we hit that? I'm thinking maybe end of the month, early November, potentially, when that may happen. So, yeah. And ultimately, 3-hour potentially to come deeper into the red here. Looking like it might want to come deeper now. Let's get into more of the, kind of short-term, real short-term here. You are printing a bullish div, I believe, not quite on the hourly. Not quite in the hourly, double kind of bottom. This could break up. If this does break up, you're back up to 27, low 27s. But I don't think it's too strong based on what I told you about the 4-hour, the 5-hour. Money flow coming up on the 30-minute. Potentially, if we could, some decent curvature here. Potentially, if it could come into the green on the 30-minute here, you could have some upward potential. That could be a good place to potentially look for kind of a long, but you're not getting too many bold divs on some of these lower time frames. Money flow coming up here. I think you're just going to either bounce around and then break down farther. I'm not really thinking you're going to have too much relief here. The main thing, oh yeah, I forgot to mention this time frame, and don't forget, you have 3 LXs. Sometimes, a lot of times they come in batches of 4 or 5. This could be a nice bull trap, this kind of bull div right there. 2 more yellow X's or something, right down to 26.2, volume area low into spider line. That would be a good scalp along there. So be careful. Be careful with it right now. Moving on to, and obviously part of the reason we're coming down is because CPI report came in slightly higher than expected. That's going to be overall bearish for traditional markets and crypto too. So there's that fundamental aspect. Treasury yields are also coming up higher as well. We'll talk about that in a second too. So at face value, I wouldn't say that would be the best thing for crypto. Weekly, red dot on Ethereum, not looking too good there. ETH keeps bleeding against Bitcoin. Let's just take a quick look at that. just generally making lower lows here. We could zoom in a little bit. I mean, the low of the year was on October 10th, 2 days ago. Looks like you want to roll over and come down farther. The main thing here that I'm kind of worried about, well, not necessarily worried about, but the reason I think we could drop down quickly is because look at where money flow was back here. We dropped down so quickly, but then you were done. So if it was essentially from June of 2019 to September. So, a few months, what was that? Let's see, July, August, about 3 months into, potentially into the end of the year. December, if we do see it come down this low, I don't know if we will come down this low, but these areas, that's going to be a really good, rare opportunity to get into ETH or convert some Bitcoin to ETH. So just keep that in mind. Now, moving on to some of these time frames here, like Bitcoin, money flow looks like it wants to come deeper on the 3-day here on Ethereum. And this is kind of, we're losing. We're making a lower low here from September 11th. Not a good sign. You're getting yellow X's, another yellow X confirmed on 6-hour, yellow X printing on 8-hour. And keep in mind, guys, this could be something that turns into 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, all the way down to around 1,300 for Ethereum. And based on how that ETH versus Bitcoin chart looks, it could happen sooner rather than later. I mean, if you look at it here into the next couple of weeks, into the end of the month, next 10 days. So that's definitely a big possibility. 3 LXs right there. And then, 3, so same kind of thing. Coming up a little bit on some of these time frames, but I'm not seeing what I want to see in terms of any type of trend reversal here. And, if you look at kind of, the 10-minute here, a little trigger wave to the downside. So this is, it could be one of those nice trajectories, these trigger waves, that trigger wave, that weird kind of trigger wave thing there played out pretty well. It could kind of repeat that, bring you down, potentially down to 1,500 relatively soon. Could be a scalp short or something on Ethereum, especially kind of in this environment, or kind of I know you're chasing the short, but sometimes that does work. Sometimes that definitely does work here. So we'll see what happens with this. Moving on to, a couple old favorites, Cardano, Blood Diamond on the 3-day, that's going to confirm in about 4 hours. That could be a nice trajectory down farther here. If you break out of this kind of, pattern thing that you're breaking, that you kind of are breaking out of, 15 cents is a technical target. So these could bleed a lot, especially Bitcoin going down to 1,300. Cardano could come down a lot. We're going to talk about Polkadot in a second. That is just free falling, sadly. Nothing's looking too promising on some of these. I mean, you're just not getting the bull divs. You're not getting the stuff we want to see just yet. So I think these will generally continue down farther. Cardano, generally continue down farther. If you want some good trade setups, like I mentioned, check out the Discord. If you want to do some of these trades, and you could kind of do a low risk, kind of high reward potential trade here with something like this. If you did maybe a stop loss above there, and then you probably have to wait, but maybe trying to bring this down to 20 cents, maybe a little tighter. I would go above that. Yeah, go above that kind of swing high there. That's a pretty good risk ratio. Risk reward ratio, if you go 2 to 1 here, good potential kind of swing short for this. I don't know if it's going to win, but if you do want to give it a shot, check out some of the links down below, especially FAIRDESK. If you want to get a free $100, well, you have to deposit, do one futures trade and get a $100 trading bonus. And then if you deposit a higher amount on there, you could get a additional kind of trading bonus, and you could play around with kind of the house money, and then you could withdraw profits that you made from that. So if you guys are interested, link down below. Only with my link you could get that $100 trading bonus. MEXC, we're doing something similar too. The MEXC one, you do have to deposit at least $100 to be eligible and do one futures trade. So check out those exchanges down below. No KYC, no VPN for all those except Prime XBT down below. All of them are the best exchanges I think to use right now. So yeah. And if we move on, that was kind of Cardano. Generally think we're going to come down farther. Let's look at Polkadot, then we'll look at some of the 30-year yield. ELX on the weekly, definitely not a good sign. I mean, if it does play out kind of like this one, you're kind of free falling right now. You could come down to like 2 something here. It took a while. It's taken a while to come down this far, and we're still coming down. I mean, that's okay. Yeah, we are okay. I didn't even just realize right now when I zoomed in, we're kind of almost about to hit this 360 area. So you may see a bounce here. But what I think may potentially happen, you come down to some of these low areas, you get a bull div with money flow coming up on your weekly, that could be the place where you're finally kind of bottoming out. When would that happen? End of year, early next year, sometime before March, sometime before that Bitcoin halving, I think. But, oh man, just looking at this, I mean, this could be, it would be risky. It would be risky, but I think, money flow starting to come up here in your 2 hour. all these yellow X's, this could be kind of getting a local bottom. I mean, it's not going to go down forever in one notch, so maybe a day long, something like that, potentially. So yeah, but this yellow X in the weekly makes me pretty hesitant. I just want to sit on the sidelines now and see what happens. We are now from our all-time high down, and I mean Polkadot's had some decent fundamentals, 93% from all-time high. So that is interesting. I'm just curious about real quick Cardano. Is Cardano down worse or better? Because the chart on Polkadot looks worse, but it may not. It looks to be deceiving. Yeah, about the same. Okay, about the same. Cardano down slightly less. So yeah. Looking at the 30-year yield, this got a big jump up today, especially with the bad the bad CPI report, hot CPI report. It was the worst day since I believe last year for this. Came down a good amount yesterday. Now we're jumping up more, about to form a trigger wave in the 16-hour. It looks like this could continue forward and potentially, I mean, people, I'm not like an expert. I don't know what's going to, I mean, no one can predict completely what's going to happen, but I think that you may see one more last leg up, and then that's kind of it, 5.5%, and then you're generally kind of done as this, starts to kind of come back down. And the inverse of that essentially could be, we could look at the TLT. I mean, this is assuming the Fed doesn't raise anymore, and then they sound less hawkish as months go by. But the TLT, I think the inverse of that you'll see is this come down a little bit more, hit this major point around $83. Once you hit it, then you're kind of home free essentially. So you're coming back down, probably going to mess with this point, test this point, I don't know, 82, mess around with this, and then I think you might be home free. I mean, I don't really see this going completely under that. Bull div kind of about to form. I think it's kind of a no-brainer that this is most likely anything could happen, most likely bottomed out if we do confirm a bull div on the TLT right there. So keep that in mind. So yeah, I mean, let's look at some traditional markets a little bit. Obviously, what would tell us that, or let's just, the last thing we'll look at in terms of crypto, what would tell us that altcoins will probably continue to bleed against Bitcoin. Bitcoin dominance looks like it wants to come up a bit higher. Technical target all the way up at 59. I think you could get somewhere between 55 and 60 to kind of peak out. Or, that's when a lot of things will probably bottom out against Bitcoin, such as Ethereum. It bottomed out against Bitcoin in September of 2019 at 72% Bitcoin dominance. So let's say Bitcoin dominance trends down kind of over time. This peaks out this time at like 55 to 60. Could be possible. I mean, sure, we did come up a little bit higher here in December of 2020, but ETH had bottomed out against Bitcoin a while before that. So yeah. Moving on to traditional markets a little bit, which are down today, obviously, mainly because of the CPI thing. When we look at the monthly, it looks bad. It confirms 19 days, red dot. If you look at the weekly, trigger wave forming, that's a more bullish case, but the more we zoom in here and we draw fib levels right there, you're messing around with this pocket, not one of the golden pockets. It's a 3.5 and 3.82, not as strong as this golden pocket, I would say, but we are messing around with it. Gap to our size coming back down. Can we break above it or have this act as resistance? I'm not exactly sure here. We got to definitely see if we do come up higher with this. Well, VWAP coming down 2 on the daily. That the daily doesn't look too good. If we do come up higher with this, I'm thinking 440 potentially. But I do think you may reject here, and then you could come down farther. I mean, if you break down off of the pattern, kind of did we hit the technical target out of this like kind of M pattern here that we broke down of? Not yet. See, next big place is going to be around 412. When could you hit that? Potentially, let's see here, potentially. It could be November, December, end of year, or early next year. So that's what we got to look at here, 410, 412. And then I think throughout all of that, Fed would probably would not pivot. Rates would probably stay constant, but they would probably sound a bit less hawkish as inflation probably starts to come down a bit with that, hopefully. So we see more deflation rather than stagflation. Now, looking at the NASDAQ, a lot of the same, obviously, as S&P 500. Trend reversal triangle printing, or it has actually just confirmed. There it was a good signal. So if you repeat that from August 23, came down a bit. Out of this whole structure here, if we do generally break down from this structure, you would kind of, around 13.7, I would say, could be a bigger place, especially if Bitcoin does come down, or excuse me, as S&P 500 comes down as well. VWAP coming up in the weekly, but that monthly red hike and ashy about to print the red dot. I think that could be somewhat of a, I mean, the grand scheme of things could be a repeat of that, bringing us to potentially a lower low in mid next year. So that's what we gotta kind of realize too. I mean, keep in mind things usually bottom out after the Fed pivots. Say the Fed pivots in May, April, then you come down a bit farther. Now, the question here is, can Bitcoin kind of sustain, hold up during that bottom out before that and outperform, traditional markets? I think it might be able to. I think it might be able to because of the 4-year cycle. I think it might be able to, especially if you have more regional banking fear, things of that nature, and less supply with the halving coming up. So that's a good, positive theory on Bitcoin right there. So ultimately, that's that right now. Let's try the local fib level on the NASDAQ just to see, where this big point, that golden pocket could be a big point. Almost hit it there. Maybe we'll jump up one last time, mess around with it. 15.4K there. Right now, it looks like you could be bouncing back above it. We got to see what happens here. We got to definitely see what happens. So anyway, guys, that's all I got right now. Check out the exchanges down below, especially FAIRDESK and MEXC for those really, really good promos. And also check out the Aldo Empire VIP Discord. Me and 3 other analysts that spit a lot of really good sauce there. A lot of really good TA, a lot of really good trade setups. We're also doing one-on-one coaching calls there as well if you guys are interested. So yeah, all right, guys, hope you have a good one. Goodbye.